Hey, house guests, welcome to today's BBCan 10 updates and spoilers. Happy Saturday. What day is it? Our house guests of the day are Kim Bachman and Giselle P. Thank you both so much for the support. We could not do this without you, and we appreciate it so, so much. So thank you again. And if you guys want to be house guests of the day, check out our Patreon link in the info box below. It's only $1 for a holla. Yay! And I also want to thank yesterday's super chatters because that is another fantastic way to support our channel. So Jefferson Tucker, Theodore, Susan Pengilly, and Janet Tucker 68, thank you so much. I think I get so excited when I'm talking that I breathe in like too much air and it like irritates my throat, and that's why I still have this cough. Just a theory. But anyway, when we left off yesterday, oh my goodness. This little recap before we get to the new stuff is like quite the experience. But anyway, Marty, the HOH. Oh, thanks. My boyfriend's here. Thanks. I love you. Marty, the HOH, is trying to figure out who to nominate. He admitted to Gino and later everyone that he was one of the votes to evict Gino. And just a side note, Helena's vote has not been exposed yet, but Summer is suspecting that it could be Helena because she noticed that Helena reacted in a strange way when Marty announced his vote to everybody. But anyway, okay. Marty's telling Gino, this is not who I am. I have your back. Except when I don't. Marty blames Josh and Betty for flipping his vote and then setting a trap for him so that he would be one of the only people voting for Gino to go. So we won't know for sure until Monday, when I'm assuming we'll get a flashback of what happened. But all the little puzzle pieces that we're putting together, it sounds like before the second eviction vote, when it was Jess versus Gino up on the block, there was this little meeting in the Expedia room with Josh, Betty, Helena, and Kevin. And they were all discussing potentially evicting Gino because that would have been the smarter move. But it sounds like Marty came in. They got him on board for this plan. That would have been 5 votes that would have been enough to evict Gino. But along the way, something spooked the group at the last minute and caused them to back out, or at least some of them. Apparently, Marty and Helena did not get the memo, and I believe they were sitting on the opposite side of the couches than the people in that group that did not, to go. So now the question is, were Josh and Betty actually even leading the charge on this, or is Marty just blaming it on them because he's closer to Kevin and Helena, who were also in that meeting? I don't know. But Marty was telling Gino that he would do what Gino wants with the nominations to make it up to him. So Gino wanted Moose versus Josh up on the block. So this was like kind of awkward a lot for Marty because Marty had already told Moose, you're safe this week. You're not going up on the block. Just kick your feet up. Anytime Marty tells you to kick up your feet and relax, you know you're probably in trouble. Oh, the sound is skipping. I'm sorry, guys. Our internet sucks. And unfortunately, I don't know what we can do about that in the moment. But yeah, Marty was telling Moose that he's safe. So not long after that, Marty let Moose know that he's going up on the block. Okay, but then not long after that, Marty decides to change his mind again because Betty was called to the diary room during an HOH lockdown, and this just further fueled the paranoia that a bunch of the house guests have already had that maybe Betty does have a secret power. I don't think so. They think that she got this during the telephone tasks. I don't think so. But Marty decides he wants to put up Josh and Betty to try and flush out Betty's power. So Moose would be the replacement nominee if necessary. That's what he was saying yesterday. Who knows what he would actually end up doing. But the feeds went down just before 5 p.m. yesterday, and they stayed down until 11:06 p.m. So they were off for like a 6+ hour chunk. And we know that they did the nomination ceremony during that time. But what else happened? It was super sketchy because right before the feeds went down, Kevin and Marty were chatting in the HOH room. And Marty, again, was talking about the Gino vote and how that all went down. And Marty was getting really worked up, really angry. And the other house guests, and the live feed viewers as well, start to hear this like banging, which is coming from upstairs in the HOH room. So that was like one of the last things that we heard before the feeds cut. There was a lot of speculation, like, what is Marty doing? It sounds to me like he was like knocking around some furniture or something. I believe Helena said later on that he was like pounding on a table or something because they're so angry. Sounds like this dude's got anger issues. I mean, it's a lot. But it's also possible that the house guests were filming a sponsor related activity or something for April Fool's Day during that time. Who knows? But we do know that they had the nomination ceremony. So Marty nominated Josh and Betty as planned, if you count like the latest plan he had. But Kevin and Helena were chatting in the purple bedroom after nominations, and Kevin says Marty is out of his mind. Kevin also says, man, he really effed up by not pushing harder on Thursday. And I'm assuming he means we should have pushed harder for Gino to go, which I agree with. I think they would have been in a much better position at this point if Gino had left on Thursday instead of Jess. So Helena agrees. But Kevin says it's okay. We move on and we continue to fight. Kevin says it would also be great if one of us was good at competitions. Right? That'd be wonderful. But they're really annoyed that Marty is not doing what's best for him this week, aka doing what they want, which is targeting Herman. Instead, Marty is doing what Gino and JC Lynn want. Because again, Marty says he's trying to make it up to them and do what they want. But it's funny because Marty ended up not going with what Gino said he wanted. But anyway, Kevin asks Helena, should we use Power Veto on Josh if one of us were to win? Do we just like blow this shit up and ourselves that we're working with Josh? Like, what do we do? I'm not sure what the consensus was here. It was kind of hard to hear. But they then discussed, they seem to think that Josh would have the votes if he's still up against Betty on the block on Thursday. It's risky. I don't know. But moving on, the feeds were straight up trash last night. They were. We only got to see little bits of combos here and there. The feeds were just down a bunch completely. When they were on, we would only get 2 cameras instead of 4. So not a great night for feeds. But we did see Josh and Herman were talking in the red bedroom, and it sounds like Josh was asking Herman, would he potentially use the power veto on him? And Herman says, well, Marty would be upset, but for HOH next week. And keep in mind, Herman and Josh have a final 2 deal. They're the BC babies. And Herman says, if I change my mind beforehand, I'll let you know. But right now, I would 100% use it if I win it. Nice. But Herman's also saying, I'm going to think through a million different scenarios. But when I decide, that's it. Okay. I mean, Herman made a big stink last week. He was upset that Summer, who he was working with, she would use it. So then if Herman won the veto this week and use it on his final 2, that would look really weird. But anyway, a little later, Marty and Herman are chatting in the HOH room, and Herman is thanking Marty for keeping him off the block. They had a 1-week deal for safety, and Herman's asking Marty, do you want the nominations to stay the same? And Marty confirms he does. Marty also talks about how he thinks Betty has a secret power. Nope. But he's saying she was in the diary room for the whole HOH lockdown, and that's fishy. Okay. So Marty is saying he still doesn't know who the second vote was for Gino. He thinks it was probably somebody else from that meeting in the Expedia room before the vote. Correct. It was Helena. But Marty says, I really should be playing with my head, but I'm playing with my heart because I'm old school. Is that what we're calling it now? old school because I've heard like some other words for it. But anyway, Marty says it hurt him so much to lie about his vote to Gino. But because he won HOH right away, he was able to be honest about it. And he says if he didn't win this HOH, he would have kept lying about his vote basically until he won HOH. Yikes. I don't see Marty keeping this secret in for more than like 4 or 5 hours, even if he did not win HOH. But Marty's just going on and on about how he got caught in a trap. You are still the one that decided to vote out your bro again. Not again, because he didn't vote out the first time, but he didn't tell him about the vote the first time. But, like, he's turning his back on Gino. Again, that is your decision. Nobody like held a gun to your head and said vote for Gino to go, but he's not taking accountability for it. So Herman's asking Marty, do you think you'd still be able to work with Gino moving forward? And Marty says, no, I don't think so. You know, I've turned on him 2 times now. But if that were actually true and Marty thought that there really wasn't a chance, why would he let Gino run his HOH this week? Why would he not go ahead and target Gino and like finish the job and get rid of him? You know? So I think Marty fully intends on trying to work with Gino moving forward. But Marty tells Herman, you know, I told you that you would be safe this week. I gave you my word and I stay true to it. Your word means nothing. It means nothing. But he's asking Herman, would you keep me safe next week if you win HOH? And Herman says 100%. So Marty says, all right, you say yes now, but until you do it, it's not really the same thing. This dude's got a lot of nerve. Marty says, I'm very loyal, even if I backstab my friend twice. He's losing it. He lost it. But Marty says, Betty is his target this week because he thinks that she's the one that set up the trap and Josh was just a part of it. Of course you think that. Okay, sure. Moving on. Later, Summer and Marty were chatting in the HOH room and Summer's just asking like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And Marty says, I'm okay. I'm just trying to avoid drama. He says, I don't want to get into a shouting match with Betty, so I'm keeping my distance from her. So then Marty proceeds to start drama and he tells Summer, I know for a fact that during Jess's HOH week, you pitched to Jess that I should be backdoored. And he says this happened during the Wendy's date. So Summer denies it. She's like, I definitely did not pitch for you to go up. Now, from what I've seen on the feeds, Summer has talked to people about targeting Marty, but she did not mention Marty to Jess in the clip that we saw from the Wendy's date. Now, keep in mind, that's an edited down thing that we see on the episode, and we don't see that on the live feed, so it's very possible she could have brought up Marty as a target, and they just didn't include it in the episode. I don't know. She's mentioned it to other people. I don't know if she mentioned it specifically to Jess in that Wendy's conversation. But Marty's insisting that it happened, and Summer's insisting that it did not. So Marty's like, you're telling me that Jess was lying to me? It's also convenient that Jess is not there anymore. But Summer says, yeah, Jess has been lying. So Marty's like, no, sorry, I don't believe that. And he like wouldn't even look at Summer until she was like, you won't even look at me. Marty says, to be honest, if it wasn't for everything that happened, like with Josh and Betty, I would have targeted you this week. Why would you say that? Like, that's Marty's unhinged. He is like not in a good place right now. So Marty says, I really thought that you had my back the whole time. And Summer says, it's very unfortunate that you believe Jess in this situation. Jess has thrown me under the bus multiple times and lied. So they start arguing about whether or not Jess was lying. And again, Jess is not even in the house anymore to corroborate. Is that the word? Or did I just make that up? I feel like that's the word. But Marty says, I don't give a shit if you target me next week. So I guess he's totally comfortable telling Summer that he would be targeting her if it weren't for the other thing that happened. He said, you're lucky that all this stuff happened because you would have been going up on the block. Marty, again, unhinged. So Big Brother blocks the feeds. We don't get to see the rest of this conversation, but we do see a clip. I think it was actually on the other camera of Marty basically like kicking Summer out of the HOH room, it looked like. And as she was leaving, she was like going off about Jess. I don't remember exactly what she said other than like effing whore or something. Like, I don't know exactly, but looks like it got kind of nasty. But later, Summer was in the beach room with Betty, and Summer walks up to the camera to address Canada. And she says, "All right, I've calmed down now. I was very upset earlier, but now I'm back in the game." She says she's sorry that we saw Winter, which we didn't really because Big Brother cut the feeds. But Summer says, "I'm coming with fire and flames now." And she says it is what it is. And when she says that, Big Brother cuts the feeds again. Of course they do. So, all right. Late last night, Herman and Gino are chatting in the storage room. And Gino says, after everything that happened, Gino and JC Lynn were the only two to vote to evict Josh a few weeks ago. He thought he had a lot of really good conversations with Josh. He thought they were in a good place. He says, it's really not sitting well with me now that I'm hearing that Josh was trying to orchestrate a flip against me during the double. So he says, I'm still probably a target of Josh's. You think? So he feels like he needs to talk to Josh and see where they stand with each other. So Gino tells Herman he appreciates that Herman and Moose both voted for him to stay. And then they talk about, moving forward, what are they going to do with Marty? What do you do with him? Herman brings up he told Marty that he would not put him up next week if he wins HOH. And Herman says, I'm a man of my word. But that's if I win power. Obviously, I can't control what everybody else does if they were to win HOH. Wink, wink. So Herman says he would really like for Gino to talk to Josh, see if they can repair things because he really likes Josh. And Gino says, yeah, I know you and Josh are tight. He brings up the chain of safety, how Herman chose to save Josh. And they were both surprised by Marty's choice of Helena. Again, I think Marty would have been in some trouble with his allies this week. More trouble than he's already in if he had not won HOH. But they also thought maybe Summer would have picked Gino. But so then the feeds cut. I don't know why. I don't know why we couldn't hear the rest of that conversation, but that's all we got to see of that. So this morning, Herman, Josh, and Helena are chatting in the red bedroom, and Josh says, I am kind of nervous for today. They got the power veto coming up. Herman tells him, you just got to stay locked in. Focus on the POV. It'll work out. He says there's only one thing that you can control, and that's how you perform in the power veto competition. That's really good advice. So Helena is then called to the diary room. Herman and Josh chat some more about the power veto. So Josh is like, oh, Helena said that she would think about playing in the veto for me. And Herman's like, okay, cool, but Helena is best friends with Marty. They're like super close. Marty chose to save Helena in safety tree, So don't give Marty another horse in the race. Helena might not want to upset Marty by using the veto. So Herman confirms if he gets the chance, he would still use the power veto on Josh. Woo! He says Marty's the only person who would be upset. And I don't think Herman cares if Marty's upset at this point. But Josh says, you know what? I don't think Marty even really wants me to go. He just put me up on the block to satisfy Gino and JC Lynn at this point. Well, let's not forget that that Marty was also the one who pushed for Josh to go up on the block the first time when Kyle was HOH. So I keep calling Marty Gino. Marty wants Josh to go. Maybe not as much as Betty, but he still wants Josh to go. So Herman says this move, these nominations that Marty made are purely for him to try and clear his conscience. I can see that. So Herman lets Josh know Gino wants to talk to you, and he wants to be reassured that it wasn't your idea to vote him out during the double because he feels really hurt about that. So then Betty comes in and breaks up the conversation, and she's talking about how today she is exhibiting toxic positivity. Like a kill 'em with kindness kind of thing. But then a little later, Marty and Betty were both in the kitchen, and Marty starts apologizing for something that he said during the nomination speech. I'm not sure exactly what this speech was, but it sounds like it was over the top and ridiculous. So Betty says to Marty, "It was so rude. You didn't have to say all of that." I just love when Betty claps back at people. She just has there's just something about it which is just very yes to watch. So Marty says, if I said something to hurt you, it wasn't my intention. I'm so sure. So Betty says, if I go home at the end of the day, I'm fine with that because at least I have my character and my honesty still. I can't say the same for you. She says Marty was so disrespectful. She can't wait for Canada to see what he did. And she knows that Marty cares a lot about how Canada is perceiving him. Betty brings up how Marty felt when Gino made the speech against him, how upset and how torn up he was about that. And now he turns around and does the same exact thing. Right? So she says Marty's speech was so much excess noise and it's something she'll never forget for the rest of her life. I think the thing about Betty that always gets to me, like cracks me up, is when she's like, "Never talk to me again, ever." It just reminds me of my sister and I when we were younger, not anymore. But when sisters are like, "Don't talk to me ever again." So Betty tells Marty, "I know you care about your character and your honesty," and that was definitely exhibited during that nomination speech. So Betty says, "I'm being targeted for no reason. I'll be able to leave with my head held high." She tells Marty, "It's a weak move to get me out. It's a waste of an HOH, and Canada's going to see that too." Ah! So after Betty walks away, Marty says, "Still bitter, I see." Really, Marty? You freaking crabbed about Gino's nomination speech forever. Ridiculous. All right. So later, Gino and Josh were chatting, and remember, Herman was encouraging both of them to talk together, kind of work things out. So we didn't get to see the beginning of this; it wasn't on feeds. But Gino says to Josh, "I would rather keep you than Betty this week." He thinks that Betty masterminded trying to get him out, and like Marty was saying, Josh was just there, but Betty was the one who was really trying to make it happen. We don't know because we haven't seen it yet, but I feel like probably not. I don't know. But Josh is like, "No, I wasn't the one that masterminded it." And Gina says, "Okay, cool." Doesn't like you're not gonna expand on that? Either of you? What? So Gino says the trust with Marty is gone at this point. He turned on me twice. He's easily manipulated. I just hope if the veto is used that Josh will bring this information to Marty, because I feel like if Marty hears this about Gino, you know how he is. Maybe Marty will be like, "Gino needs to go." I don't know. But it would be interesting. But Gino is wishing Josh luck in the power veto competition. He says, "We can talk more after the comp. Like, let's see what happens." Gino is saying he wants to see strong players, like the two of them make it to the end, blah, 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 blah. Nothing really new there. There was not a lot going on in this conversation. It's wild when Gino is the one who's talking more in the conversation because Gino is almost always sitting back and letting other people talk. But Josh was talking even less than Gino. Wild. Okay, so they had the POV player picks, and the players are the two nominees, Josh and Betty, and then the three extras are Gino, Kevin, and Summer. And this is interesting because I could potentially see all of these house guests except for Gino possibly using the power veto. I think Kevin is iffy, but it is a possibility because Kevin loves to stir things up. So I think it would be possible. Summer, I feel like, would use power veto. I don't know if it would be on Betty or Josh. I'm assuming she's closer to Betty at this point. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. The house guests have just been waiting for Power Veto competition to start. If you want to check back later, I will post the winner in the info for this spoiler. I'm not sure at this point who Marty would actually put up as the replacement nominee because he's all over the place. He was saying before it would be Moose, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has already changed his mind on that. I wouldn't be surprised. Welcome.
Had to get Lucy.
Oh, okay. No worries.
She was barking at a dog walking up the block.
Oh, hello. Your sissy was barking.
And then I went out and was a jerk too.
Oh. Okay, so hello, sir.
Aren't I great?
You're wonderful. So I want to thank all of our super chatters today because you guys are awesome. And again, we could not do this without your support.
We couldn't.
Yeah. Sean, you go, girl. Thank you so much. Chris F, thank you so much for the super chat. The Real VB, thank you so much. And the Real VB says, you are my savior. Oh my God. From having to listen through this season's HOH meetings, you are appreciated. Thank you so much. I can't take all of the credit for it because sometimes I can't do it. And I just read the transcripts and just check in on a little bit of those one-on-one meetings because it's just too much.
That's not farts.
Yeah, Bowie is swimming on this carpet. His nails are whatever.
Just wanted everyone to know it wasn't farts.
It's not farts. Zero farts in here right now. So
great.
Thank you so much, The Real VB. I do my best. Rachel, is it Galbraith? Thank you so much. Galbraith? I'm sorry if I butchered your name, but thank you for the super chat. And Rachel says, love your spoilers. First time watching BBCan. I'm Canadian. Eat. Aw. And I love how it differs from USA BB, right? It has a different vibe to it.
Love it.
Different vibe. But they're both a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I feel like Big Brother Canada listens a lot more to their fan base.
I feel like it's children.
I think. What do you mean?
They're all different, but I enjoy them all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I want to thank you all again so much. Oh, Rachel says I had her name right. Yay! All right. So just a reminder, no spoiler tomorrow. It's my day off. So we'll be back on Monday for more, and we hope you all have a great Sunday. We'll see what happens with this POV. I don't know. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have a great night. And until next time,
no farts.
No farts. And much love. Bye. Bye.